3,500 fish.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I think it's a whole lot more than 3,500 fish. Chickens dead in their coops. Oh, my God. Sore throats and burning eyes of people. They're doomed.
That's chemical burns.
And it's all carcinogenic. The dead men walking.
Yep.
All right. So this is the Lawyer Dana Show. And we're going to talk about this thing in Ohio that we've started reporting on and discussing here. So let's see what they have to say here.
Residents of East Palestine are living the real-life version of the Oscar-nominated Netflix movie some helped make when they were extras in that film. This is part of the trailer for White Noise, about a suburban community that faces a so-called airborne toxic event after...
Of course, that's what they're facing right now, too.
Right.
When life imitates art, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
A train wreck causes a chemical leak.
Is that what it is in the movie? And then it actually happens in the same town?
And they're
where
saying
the extras in the movie?
Yes, that's what she just said.
You've got to be kidding me.
I know. What are the odds?
The odds are astronomical.
Are you
of
wondering?
that happening.
I'm wondering if
somebody
maybe
sabotage
does
this?
someone planned this to happen just the way it's happening?
I am definitely wondering about that at this point.
Yeah, that's just really weird.
Very.
I mean, we're talking like 1 in a billion or something like that happening.
Something that could actually kill someone.
Let's watch a sitcom or something.
This is exactly what is happening.
They're calling it the airborne toxic event.
It won't come this way.
See that? Mm-hmm. That's far less than what's actually it is.
Right.
Will we have to leave our home?
Of course not.
How do you know?
You should. You should get the heck out of this.
Yes.
Okay, what if it's dangerous?
Evacuate all places of residence.
We have a situation.
White Noise stars Greta Gerwig and Adam Driver. But in real-life Palestine, Ohio, fears of a wider health and environmental disaster are growing after a 150-car freight train operated by Norfolk.
150-car
Looky
freight
there.
train.
They've got Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia.
Yeah, and the Great Lake right there.
Yep.
Wonder what's going to happen in that lake.
Southern derailed and released toxic chemicals last week.
So which way did the massive amount of smoke go? I want to see meteorologists that are analyzing and looking at this and seeing where that toxicity is going. Somebody has to get on that.
Community of East Palestine near Ohio's border with Pennsylvania. Data released by the Environmental Protection Agency.
I mean, I don't want to be over here on the other side of that either.
Well, you also got to think about traveling. Don't travel that direction.
Yeah, what if you're in a plane flying any kind of air or something? I mean, maybe it won't.
Well,
I don't know.
Just the thought of like staying in one of those states right now. Don't go.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely not.
The train contained more toxic and carcinogenic chemicals than initially reported. The EPA also said, quote, materials released during the derailment were observed and detected in samples from Sulphur Run, Leslie Run, Bull Creek, North Fork, Little Beaver Creek, and the Ohio River. The
Ohio River
All
runs. Doesn't the Ohio River eventually
into the Mississippi?
Yeah.
Ohio Department of Natural Resources estimates the spill killed more than 3,500 fish in surrounding waterways.
3,500 fish?
Yeah.
Oh, no. I think it's a whole lot more than 3,500 fish.
And how do they know? Did they sit there and count each fish? I mean, come on.
Found dead in their coops. Residents have reported
Chickens dead in their coops.
Sore throats, burning eyes, and...
Oh, my God. Sore throats and burning eyes of people.
Yeah.
They're
That's
doomed.
chemical burns.
And it's all carcinogenic. They're dead men walking.
Yep.
respiratory problems. A controlled burn of the chemicals following.
The problem is that stuff gets in you and just doesn't get out and just destroys you
just thinking about
slowly from the inside.
Like,
it can change your
got
DNA.
Babies, you got, you know,
and the elderly. This is clearly worse than the 2020 catastrophe that we had.
Yes.
Following the derailment, sent a mushroom cloud of smoke and fire into the air.
What happened to Japan when we let off?
Fukushima?
Yes.
Yeah.
And people instantly died. Like,
Yeah.
come on. And then they had the after effects of that for like years.
That contained the toxic
goodness.
chemicals.
Look at that.
Surveillance footage also shows the train on fire about 20 miles before it derailed with hazardous chemicals as it passed through Salem, Ohio. Officials lifted an evacuation order for residents Wednesday, saying the air and water are safe. For more, we're joined by three guests. Ross Reuters is with us, locomotive engineer.
Well, it was on the rails?
How does that happen?
Yeah.
That had to be sabotage.
It's totally got to be sabotage. There's something not right with this.
Nope. Because that's not a train track problem. I flipped over. I did whatever track problem.
That's someone set something on fire.
Yeah. It had to have been intentional.
And you got to think, it's polluting the air as it's going.
Well, it depends on if it was just the train on fire.
Yeah. Or was a chemical on fire?
Hard to say.
Co-chair of Railroad Workers United, Julia Rock, joins us, an investigative reporter with The Lever, who's been following the derailment in Ohio. Her piece is headlined, "There Will Be More Derailments."
Unite and fight.
Fight for two-person train crews. Are there only one person on a train? They're crewing it with just one person? Are they trying to cut costs down to where they're doing a whole giant long train with just one person?
God, I hope not.
And rail companies.
So, Pete Buttigieg's transportation department has not moved to revive an Obama-era safety rule that could help future train accidents. You know, they're trying to blame this on Trump.
Of course.
Everything, COVID, when they did that, they tried to blame that on Trump. Everything. There will be more derailments. Well, why? And because they could put a stop to that.
Maybe because they only have one employee working the trains.
Well, let's see what this guy has to say.
Block safety rules before Ohio derailment.
Rail companies block safety rules before Ohio derailment. Norfolk Southern helped convince government officials to repeal brake rules. Corporate lobbyists watered down hazmat safety regulations. Maybe it was a brake thing that was rubbing wrong or caught on fire.
But we begin with Emily Wright.
I think them setting this stuff on fire and gaseating a noxious plume of toxic smoke to spread throughout several states and all the water supply. Mm-hmm. Not good.
No, they need to be held responsible. Why wouldn't you go?
Let's just burn this off. Let's not try and go and like bottle it or put hoses into it and siphon it off into some other kind of container and then seal it and figure out something else to do it. Let's just burn it into the atmosphere.
Right. Let's be dumb
morons.
Resident of Columbiana County in Ohio, a few miles from the derailment, an explosion site in East Palo.
I mean, if it's going to explode, I don't know. What do you do? I don't know. But
if it's an explosion, it's one
you clear
thing.
Everybody around and hope that it doesn't explode or something.
But you don't set it on fire.
You send a robot in to put a tube into it that you can bottle it somewhere else or something. You figure out something. You don't just, hey, let's burn it and get this over with.
Palestine. She's also the development director for River Valley Organizing, which is working with residents to call for justice-centered healing. Emily, can you describe the scene of what you're calling a chemically driven environmental nightmare? What is...
Absolutely. You want to talk about polluting and CO2 in the air as if that's something bad that doesn't make trees grow?
Right.
This is what the environmentalists should be concerned about. This.
Mm-hmm. What does it look like, smell like? Describe what happened when the train...
God, to even smell it, you're risking your entire life. Because remember, 1 part per million? Mm-hmm. I don't even know if you can smell anything that is at the concentration of 1 part per million. So if you're able to smell it, how many parts per million that must be, and that you're inhaling carcinogenic?
You don't need to smell it.
No.
Derailed, and how you learned about how you had to protect yourself.
How do you have to protect yourself?
Good morning. Thanks for having me on. One of the things that I really want people to know is that this event has kind of 3 parts. So Friday night, we had the derailment around 9 p.m. in between 9 and 10.
So that was Friday. Mm-hmm. at one we just saw was 11 days ago. How many days? Today is Friday. So was this
Yeah.
2 weeks ago?
Has to be now.
And it's really hasn't been that
I knew
promoted.
nothing about it.
It took me a week before I even heard about it.
Yeah, I knew nothing about it.
And residents that were right at the site, were evacuated. Then the next day, they evacuated more people on Saturday because it was still burning. And at this time, we didn't know what was on the cars. We heard maybe it was vinyl chloride, maybe it was 10 cars.
And how do you not know? How did they not have they send a train off with a bunch of stuff on it and nobody knows for sure what's on that train? Are you kidding me?
Aren't they supposed to make a list of everything?
You would think.
And they're checking it off? I mean,
why would you not?
In an airport, you have to report everything that you're putting out through a plane. And there's certain things you can't take on a plane. So why wouldn't they be?
Well, if you're intentionally shipping something, why wouldn't you have a manifest not on the ship? If a ship sinks or a train crashes and everything is lost, wouldn't you want to have a list and know exactly what's on there?
For insurance purposes?
So they probably do know. And how is it that this lady that lives there wasn't informed of that?
Right.
Maybe it was 5. We really didn't have a great picture of what was, on the train. So we were told that if you were outside of that mile zone, you're okay. I live
a mile zone.
A few.
What a lie.
Oh, totally.
Either incompetence or a lie. Mm-hmm. Now, remember our whale video that we exploded? That was incompetence.
Right.
And actually something that I said earlier in the week, never underestimate stupidity.
Now, let's just be honest. They're covering their asses right now because they're scared.
I think it's both.
They're scared because they know that there's just a big, what?
Few short miles. I think on the tracks, there's 5 miles in between where I'm at and where the derailment was. And, you should be okay. And they kept saying the same thing over and over again on the media.
Look at that line
and in the press conferences. There's no toxins in the air. There's no toxins.
Like a wave.
Don't worry. Sunday night, we
that's just the
had heard, we got an alert on our phone that there had been an additional explosion and that the fire was out of control again, which it never really was in control. We have pictures and videos that timestamp clear through that show it.
At all.
Yeah. Not under control again. Yeah, she's right. It never was under control.
It was burning. And to just be aware, there was really no evacuation for us.
Why was there no evacuation? They should be evacuating immense distance around there. Mm-hmm. I would think that people would self-evacuate.
Oh,
but the question is, did the word go out?
I think that's the problem.
They should have sounded alarms.
Yeah.
And informed everybody about what was going on.
People that were a little bit further out from the radius. They were concerned on Monday morning that we were going to have an explosion.
It ain't the explosion. It's a giant cloud of poisonous gas.
I will give everybody, this much, that the explosion could have been much, much worse. So they announced to everybody that they were going to do a controlled release. And I'm using air.
How do you do a controlled release? What does that mean?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand that myself.
What did you do? Do you send somebody over, open the spigot, and it rolls out, and you set that on fire? What does that mean? I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
Air quotes when I say controlled. So they were supposed to do it at 3:30.
A.M. or P.M.?
My daughter was going to be on the bus route at that time.
Man, I would not have my kids anywhere around that.
I already was experiencing symptoms I have asthma, so I was having shortness of breath already.
Oh, God.
And was concerned, from that burn, I already had irritation. But when they did the release, they were supposed to do it at 3:30 p.m. They announced on a huge, press conference. Mike DeWine was there. All of a sudden, they stopped the press conference. They evacuated DeWine. We work with a lot of, we're nonpartisan, nonprofit. So we work with a lot of, both sides of the aisle, politicians, and had, got confirmation that he had been rushed out of there. The media.
What was he rushed out there for?
Because something bad was happening.
Of course.
It was given 5 minutes to get out, that they were pretty sure an explosion was imminent.
An explosion imminent. How and why? I mean, who knows? That could be anything, I guess. But
Well, stuff being on fire too, you know, could have ignited something else.
So they did not do the burn at 3:30. I can't tell you why. They did it 2 hours later. The problem is we had forecasted high wind gusts up to 45 miles an hour.
oh God,
So
let's do it in high winds too.
Let's spread it even more.
But what's the difference? You're going to have it more concentrated and fall shorter distance range, or you're going to have it less concentrated falling in a greater distance? Where's there less harm? Neither way there's less harm.
Right.
We get a lot of wind in our area. The hills usually break it up, but
I guess it's a bigger area you have to evacuate. But how big of an area do you want to contaminate?
it was announced that it was going to be very windy. So what they wanted to do was let it off earlier so the cloud would go. I'm sorry, 1 second, my voice.
She can't even talk.
Yeah.
So the cloud would go straight up. It wouldn't space.
What goes up
Comes down.
at some point? This stuff goes somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
so
prime example. What went up, came down.
Yeah, the whale. Massive pieces of blubber.
Yeah.
And there's the equivalent of someone whose car got hit. And the problem is, I think this is way bigger than that whale.
Oh,
that
yeah.
whale was one big flash and then came down, right?
All right.
Within a quarter of a mile. How many hundreds of miles is this thing going?
Uh-huh.
And how much did that whale weigh? A couple of tons?
Right.
This is hundreds of tons of toxic chemicals. I'd way rather have gotten sprayed with that whale than any of this stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
they let it off late, and instead the winds caught it. It went over 4 counties.
4 counties. Think about how big around here 4 counties is.
Oh, yeah. It's huge. And now we're Texas.
Denton, Tarrant, Dallas, and Cullen.
Yeah. I've drove that.
Yeah,
Delivering gifts.
I know.
And it took hours.
I know.
4 to 5 counties in 2 states, actually 3, because the panhandle of West Virginia was also affected. So we have Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, all affected by this huge mushroom cloud. You've all seen the pictures, I'm sure.
Huge mushroom cloud.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God.
We started in my home, being just a few short miles away, experiencing nausea.
A few miles away, she's nauseated.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Indoors, too, with filtration. Because you know they're not going outside.
Right.
Sorry to be explicit, but diarrhea. My father
Ah, crap. Sorry, I got to have some kind of comedy.
has bilateral asbestosis from working in the mill.
Oh my
So
God.
these industries are killing us in more than one way.
We should have all just stayed being fishermen on the beach. Is any of this worth it? What is this life that we're living?
Yeah.
I mean, God, this is terrible.
Well, you know, it states in the Bible, stuff like this happens. It's towards the end of times. We experience this kind of stuff.
Could be close. We got AI that may be about to take over, and God knows whether we can survive that.
Mm-hmm.
And he could not breathe well. And, I wanted to evacuate. We had family that was telling us to come, but then there was this massive shelter in place order put out.
They ordered you to shelter in place. So now you're there and you can't leave.
Now
So
they're-
they've locked you in the freaking gas chamber at Auschwitz.
Right.
And they're saying you can't leave, and if you do leave, we will do what? What? You're going to disobey the order. What's the consequence?
Are you going to arrest me?
Or you closing the roads down, so now I can't leave. What, do you have a car that can get through something like that? And what happens if you run the barricade? They shoot you? What happens?
Yeah. So, they...
This is wrong.
And they set themselves up for some huge liability for this.
Forget the liability. This is about life and
I
death. There's
know.
not an amount of money that can come back from this.
No.
Down. Do not be out if you don't have to. Shelter in place. In the same breath, we're hearing on a press conference and on the news, this is out of an extreme abundance of caution. There's no toxins. There's no toxins. There's no toxins.
What?
There's no toxins.
Lying. Just purely lying. What are they trying to do? Keep the roads clear? Lie to you to keep the roads clear?
That's all we kept hearing. But the only thing I really want to highlight, and I'm sorry if I'm going on too much.
This is why you need to keep your gas tank full. Because in case you have to get out quick,
Right.
you should, at the time where you're like 3/4 of a tank, you should just routinely fill up, always top off, and have all your cars full of gas. In case there's something where you just have to leave because something stupid and ridiculous just happens to happen in your area.
Right.
God
It's a
forbid,
really good
God
good
forbid
advice there.
war ever come.
Yeah.
Is what we found out through the org. We've been on the ground talking with people. We're actually investing. Our offices are in East Liverpool, Ohio, which is just a little bit south of East Palestine. But we have a lot of members of our org that live like me in and around East Palestine. So we've invested in the community and are bringing on a couple organizers that are right.
You see that drawing that they were just looking at? No way that was big enough.
No.
Did you see how little that was?
Yeah.
Like, maybe that's just the part that's on fire. Everywhere around there was affected.
Yeah.
Enough to blot out the sun.
Outside the front door of the derailment, to work with people. Because from day one, we've been fed what wasn't the truth. And now,
Yep. Yeah. You were.
Yeah.
No question.
now we find out with this EPA report that over 10,000 gallons of oil went into the ground, that the vinyl chloride was like double what we thought. And
I'm really not that concerned about oil. I'm concerned about the vinyl chloride and all the other chemicals that are there.
Right.
there was diethylene glycol, and there's other chemicals.
Diethylene glycol?
Norfolk Southern.
Hold on. News Nation reporter arrested at Ohio Governor Presser. What is that about?
From what the EPA says, did not report this to the EPA in a timely manner. So we know this is.
Well, Emily, I'd like to, Emily, if I can, I'd like to bring in Ross Gruters as a locomotive engineer and co-chair of Railroad Workers United.
Is this the guy that had this T-shirt on? Did we ever get back to him?
Ross, your reaction to this derailment and fire. Also, this report that the fire had actually started before the derailment.
For two-person train crews. God, I hope we talk about that. Because if there's only a train crew is one person.
Yeah.
And no one. And do they not look to see, hey, your train's on fire for a while? Right. No one saw that? No one thought to report that?
Right.
What is the normal procedure that is supposed to occur in situations like this? And what your assessment of this crisis is at this moment?
Yeah, thank you, Juan. None of this really comes as a surprise.
Well, that's about one of the worst things I wanted to hear from him.
Yeah.
Listen, doesn't even come as a surprise. So how many other times and places this is going to happen?
Probably because look at his shirt. He already knows why it's happening.
I don't think we should probably use trains for stuff like this.
No.
Because how many tankers do you want to have a problem with at the same time? 5?
Right.
If there's on a truck, it would probably be 1.
Right.
But no, we're going to ship oil through that.
Chemicals.
Oil is one of the things that we should probably not be shipping through. We should be shipping that through pipelines and things like that.
Well, wasn't there a pipeline being built and it got stopped?
Oh, you think? Yeah. There was a whole bunch of problems that were created.
There's deep systemic issues. You talk about the normal response to an event like this. This isn't a normal event.
I hope this is not a normal event.
And we really haven't seen anything like it in
polyvinyl additives for fuel, vinyl chloride stabilized, balls, sheet steel, frozen vegetables. You want to eat some of those? Benzene, tank carved benzene, 2 of them.
In the United States.
Paraffin wax, flakes and powder, malt liquor, a boxcar full of malt liquor, hydraulic cement, autos, passenger.
Probably not something.
Wow, a lot of malt liquor.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me.
Molson.
Since
So polyethylene, polypropylene, residue of lubrication oil, vinyl chloride stabilized, 4 of them. Dipropylene glycol, propylene glycol.
2013.
So there is a manifest of all this stuff. Mm-hmm. They just apparently weren't telling people about it. How long did it take them to put out this manifest? This is a huge tragedy.
As you know,
combustible liquid, NOS, ethylene glycol monobutyl ether. Ethyl hexyl acrylate. You know what that is?
Nope.
when
propylene
we
glycol,
had
dipropylene glycol. And then here is a picture of the car on fire before it even derailed.
the Quebec train derailment and explosion in Lac Mégantic. There are deep systemic problems with the freight railroads right now, and those need to be addressed for us to have some sort of a normal response to events like this.
I pray to God that we don't have ever an event like this. The best response to an event like this is to prevent an event like this.
Right.
And until we get at those root causes of the safety issues in the freight rail system in this country, it's not a matter of if these events are going to disrupt and...
Maybe they should just slow the trains down. I don't know.
I don't know if that's going to solve
really,
anything, even if you slow them down.
Just what the people of East Palestine are going through is just, it's heart-wrenching. That's going to occur.
Bless you.
Thanks. It's not just the people of East Palestine.
No.
It's the people in all those states around there.
Again, it's just a matter of
It's going to be interesting to see cancer rates over the next 5, 10 to 20 years and more in that section of the country. I hope they track it. I bet they won't. But, I mean, think about this, though. How many people are going to move out of that area? But I guess the people that do stay around, because you know there's going to be people that just dismiss it.
Yeah, there will be.
When and where.
And what are some of the things that need to be addressed?
Some people don't have the funds to.
It would be interesting to track.
Leave
well,
too.
Yeah, but some people do. But they've already been exposed, so how does it affect them? I would like to track everybody that was around this area for the next 50 years.
Yeah.
At any point in time when they come into that area and when they're around
like
that area.
there will be a class action lawsuit against us.
Oh, yeah.
That's like
Tom actually might take it.
Like I said to you just a little while ago about my aunt, she was a part of a class action lawsuit over same thing. It was an environmental issue that happened. That it was, I forgot what it was, but it filtered through Arizona. She grew up in Arizona, was playing outside, and she got exposed to it.
25 million people. To give them all $1, that's $25 million.
Oh, I know.
To give them all $100, so $10 would be $250. $100 would be $2.5 billion.
Yeah.
$1,000 would be $25 billion.
There wouldn't be enough money, but she got also at
$10,000 would be $250 billion.
But people are going to die in that case too.
Oh, I know.
And then it's going to take relatives, and
so
it's
even
just
to get
$10,000
a person, and then the attorney's fees are going to be like half that.
Oh yeah.
So it's going to take $500 billion to get people $10,000.
Yeah, which is not even nothing. My aunt only got $50,000. $50,000, and she lost her life to it.
I'm surprised she got that much. That's actually decent.
But that's what she got.
Wow.
But she didn't. It was.
Well, she had died already. It went to her estate.
No, well, she got it before she died.
Oh, okay.
She first had breast cancer. She got over breast cancer. Lived
it's not even going to be enough to pay for the medical.
7 years cancer free, and then it came back into her bones, and then ended up going to her brain. So the whole thing about it, you know, the way all that works. I mean, she did get awarded, but at that time, it was years after it had happened. So people, you know, it just depends on who comes out of the woodwork.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, at the root of it all is really cutbacks to staffing. You have
cutbacks to staffing. He's got a shirt that says for two
companies that are making obscene amounts of money, And they're doing so by adopting operating policies. There's a whole system for this called precision scheduled railroading that is just designed to maximize profits. And what that means is you're cutting to the bone the amount of people doing the job. So you have fewer people doing a lot more work faster. You have across the board cutbacks on the maintenance of cars, on the maintenance of locomotives, on the maintenance of track. This is critical infrastructure. And those things are...
So this is the infrastructure that they were supposed to be doing with that infrastructure money.
Mm-hmm.
And not.
Right.
Are being done in many cases by skeleton crews or outsourced to subcontractors. And then you have increasingly long and heavy trains like the one we saw here, where these trains have a greater propensity to derail. They're going to derail more frequently because they are longer and heavier.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, you have the railroads themselves who are fighting any kind of regulation, whether it be train control systems that help manage the signal system or the lobbying efforts that we saw to kill electronic braking.
Electronic braking seems really obvious as something that you should do. And to fight the regulation of having to do that, if you're going to do it on your trains and then therefore loads on your line and with your train are going to be more expensive, but they're going to be safer, none of the companies are going to ship with you. Mm-hmm. So it has to be everybody has to play the same game or none. This is an instance where regulation would be important.
Mm-hmm.
Which can make for safer operations and a quicker stop should a derailment like this occur.
You know, we're going to go to Julia Rock in a minute, the reporter who's covering this for The Lever, but I wanted to give Emily 30 seconds as you...
Either that or, I don't know, the government pays for it, therefore it taxes everyone equally as a human being about that, but which I hate even as a concept. I think the railroads should have to pay for it and charge appropriately in their pricing for everything. But then the question is, well, what if I do it first and then they do it, and how do I compete for... If you got to have electronic brakes, well, how do I buy my electronic brakes and put them on? And what if they put theirs on first? And do we all pay for them at the same time? How does it work? It's a very difficult thing to propagate through. But if we had intelligent lawmakers that would do that, that would be the thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Sit there, sometimes coughing, dealing with. And by the way, I can only say I think about Juan, his reporting after 9/11. You're talking about the EPA at the time, Christine.
Yeah, so 3,500 people were killed at the Twin Towers, and then all the firemen with all the lung problems and all that. If you've seen what Jon Stewart, the one thing I like about what Jon Stewart is doing is he's been really fighting for the first responders from 9/11 because they're all dying of cancer and all kinds of problems from that. This is way bigger than that.
Oh, yeah.
This is kicking off more than those buildings kicked off.
Mm-hmm.
Todd Whitman, the former governor of New Jersey, saying that after 9/11 attacks, the
and those buildings didn't have all these kind of chemicals in it.
air was fine. And Juan's reporting led, exposing the lie of that, to the Daily News winning a Pulitzer Prize. So, Emily, your last 30 seconds on Democracy Now! Right now, what do you think is most important for people to understand?
Okay, the most important thing is that this is not a conspiracy theory. This is standard operating procedure for Norfolk Southern. They have 70 million in safety violations since 2000. And
what?
70 million?
How do you even count 70 million safety violations?
And they're still operating?
70 million?
That's insane.
They have 21 million in environmental, just in environmental.
21 million in environmental.
How are they still operating?
Yeah. Why were they not shut down?
Environmental.
So basically, they can get away with whatever they do. They're like, oh, there's no repercussions to these problems, so I'll just continue.
How is that even
They're not
possible?
correcting it. If a restaurant got like a food issue and they didn't solve it, they're going to get shut down.
Yeah. So how come the railroad?
So why can't this isn't
adding up.
No.
25 million Americans
What politicians' pockets are being filled?
25 million Americans live in that
on
area.
an oil train blast zone. 25 million Americans. This is in the poorest parts of America, going from Conway, Illinois to Pennsylvania, cutting through Appalachia. You know, they continue to do, safety issues, lower safety concerns, not worry about us, because we are the people that historically cannot fight back. So what we're going to do with River Valley Organizing is we're going to offer free soil and water testing to people so we can actually figure out what's going on.
I want to see the results of those soil and water
me
tests.
Too.
I want them to test it and see what the results of those are right now. It's been 2 weeks. I bet they're astronomical.
At the University of Pittsburgh and the University of Kentucky.
We should call University of Pittsburgh and University of Kentucky and see if we can find out who's testing the waters and see if they'll provide us some of that information. Either that or find something or somebody. So if you guys come up with anything like that or see anything online about that, let us know.
On board to do long-range studies, because after the immediate aftermath, these people are going to need people to advocate for them.
Yeah, and they're going to need a whole lot of legal.
Yes.
And, like
10
I said,
seconds.
I wonder where Tom is out of. Attorney Tom? Isn't he out of Chicago or Ohio or somewhere around there?
Not sure.
I have several family
This is the type of law he practices, by the way.
members that have cancer or asthma or COPD from these industries. And we really need them to stop killing us. And we told them 10 years ago, we told the EPA that bomb trains, this was going to happen. We had several collaborative organizations.
Bomb trains. That's a good description of it.
Appeal to the EPA, and it happened.
Emily, we clearly are going to come back to you in these coming days because there's so much to talk about. Emily Wright with River Valley.
They need to keep talking to
We
her.
got to call her.
Yeah.
Emily, if you want to come on the show, let us know. Give us a call.
Organizing right next to East Palestine in Ohio. Ross, in 30 seconds, can you respond to the joint effort by the Republicans and the Democrats, the bill that was signed off on by Biden, the law prohibiting a rail strike and imposing a deal rejected by over half the unionized railroad workers?
What? The law that rejected.
And then we're going to go to Julia Rock.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. Railroad workers have been fighting through the contract negotiation process for relief from the conditions, which are very stressful and very demanding, and have been exacerbated by precision scheduled railroading and the corporate greed.
Shorter trains, more staff.
And money needs to quit being put in people's pocketbooks so
Exactly.
they can quit.
Too much corruption.
Yeah.
Safety equipment.
Quit
Improve
avoiding these issues.
Because how many wasn't it $3 trillion into this infrastructure bill? Mm-hmm. $3 trillion buys a whole lot of brakes for a whole lot of railroad cars and a whole lot of train track improvements and a whole lot more locomotive engines that can pull shorter trains and with less potential damage. And here's a good idea. Here's another idea. Perhaps if you're going to have a real long train, maybe space out the bad and explosive chemicals. So that way you don't have 5 carloads with them all bunched up on top of each other. And instead you have them spaced out to where maybe only one of those cars you have to burn toxic plumes of mushroom cloud cancerous gas.
Right. That didn't take a genius to figure that out, huh?
I mean,
and no one's thinking like that.
Crazy.
We've been trying to get relief from that. That would certainly help us in responding to and better managing our jobs to ensure that this doesn't happen. But this isn't going to be solved by one labor contract. It is systemic, and it needs some regulation. It needs regulators.
Perhaps people like Pete Buttigieg, who is the transportation secretary, should stop talking about diversity and equity and racism and actually just fix the infrastructure in the country. Maybe that would be a good idea.
Yeah.
to step in and correct this, or we're going to continue to see things like what happened in Ohio a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I'd like to bring in Julia Rock, the investigative reporter with The Lever, who's been following the derailment in Ohio. Julia, talk about this issue of the railroad companies convincing government officials to repeal brake rules.
How many people are dying because they did that?
Yeah, so this is a story about the Obama administration attempting to require trains carrying hazardous materials as well as crude oil to install much better braking systems on the trains, electronically controlled brakes, rather than the air brake systems currently used on trains designed during the Civil War era, which stopped trains one car at a time. And first, the railroad industry fought the Obama rules. They lobbied really hard against them. They argued it would be terrible for business. It would negatively impact the fluidity of the nation's rail system. And then when Trump came into office, they turned around and pushed for Trump to repeal the brake rules that the Obama administration had enacted, which he did.
So we're talking about rules that went back to the Civil War. They haven't been updated?
So the brakes currently on America's freight trains are air brakes, which function by stopping train cars one at a time using pressure that travels along a pipe along the train. And that is a brake system that was designed in 1868.
I'm sure it's better than it was in 1868. I think they're getting a little bit posturing a little bit on this thing. Mm-hmm. But I would like to see what those electronic brake systems are. There might be a good reason. Maybe they work, maybe they don't. I don't know. And how?
Maybe they weren't tested at the time.
Maybe it's a production issue. There's a lot of things about it. So we've identified that that's an issue, but I would definitely want to know much more about that.
Mm-hmm.
Astounding. You have 10 seconds for a final comment about what people should understand about East Palestine right now.
So, this is the result of efforts by the railroad industry to ensure that they do not have to retrofit trains carrying hazardous materials and crude oil with safety features.
Well, we want to thank you so much for being with us, Julia Rock of The Lever, Ross Gruters, locomotive engineer and co-chair of Railroad Workers United, and Emily Wright of River Valley Organizing.
Huge tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
Huge tragedy. This is the type of thing that something should actually be done about.
Right.
All that infrastructure money, this is the type of problem that it should solve.
Mm-hmm.
Should be fixing bridges, should be fixing braking systems on trains, making trains safer, fixing tracks. I saw a picture of a railroad track that was like doing like this, and a train trying to go down. It just looked insane for a train to be doing that.
Right.
That stuff needs to be fixed.
Yep.
That's the infrastructure stuff that the money's for. Not greasing the hands of your buddy politicians, not wasting the money. That's what needs to happen.
Because now look at what's going to happen. All these people are going to be dying, sick.
True tragedy
in
the United States. This is the Lawyer Dana Show.
Bye.